Reefer addicts, what's up? Robert's back to do another video. All right, so let's get moving along here with the update. So last time we spoke, I talked to you guys about my cervical disc problems, and it's now official. I'm going to have surgery on May 4th. The good news is this: met with the neurosurgeon again. There were some additional tests that were completed, and one of them being a CT scan, which gave the neurosurgeon a lot more new information. And it really worked out for me because the new path moving forward is we're going to only replace this one disc. We're not going to do these two. And we're not going to do an ADR, which is artificial disc replacement. We're going to go ahead and just remove this disc here, which is obviously the most prominent here. You can see it's just pushing on my spinal cord. This is what's causing my myelopathy, okay? And that's basically spinal cord compression. And you can run into real issues with this when you get into myelopathy. So it has to be done. I've been dreading this day, but I know that the long-term prognosis is going to be excellent. And in fact, they feel very comfortable about my prognosis moving after surgery. Is going to be excellent. So we're going to remove this disc here. We're going to put a cage in here, like a spacer. Another word for spacer is cage. Then there'll be some synthetic bone material that'll be put in there, and then these two vertebrae will fuse together. It takes about 6 to 9 months for that to occur, but I'll be up and running around just in a few days, and after a couple weeks I'll be able to drive, and then within a month I'll be able to do just about all activities that I'm used to doing, except for weight training at the gym. That's going to be a few months out for sure. I need to be real careful with that. Anyway, so that's a done deal. So I'll be down for a couple weeks. I won't be able to do any videos, but at least I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way. And I only have to do the one disc, not all three. So that's just fantastic. Okay, moving past that, I want to talk about the aquarium and what's been going on with my treatment process. We talked about this last time, that I was treating with Metroplex to deal with internal protozoans, and I was treating Prazipro for flukes. And I probably started the treatment a little bit too late. I would say my success was about 50-50. I did end up saving those two smaller leer-tail female anthias. They're doing great. I treated for a total period of 20 days with the Metroplex. So about a week longer than I needed to. And those two fish have recovered quite well. If the other fish had protozoans in their digestive system, then they were also taken care of because they ate the food with the medication in it. But it really is more of a problem for anthias than other species of fish, because the anthias are just so sensitive. There's also the question of whether or not, I don't think so, that I had uronema. It's always a possibility, but I don't believe I did. We would have seen more like lesions and red discoloration on the bodies of the fish, and some more other serious symptoms that would have escalated pretty quickly. Uronema is really dangerous, as we all know, and just can wipe out any populations of anthias in no time. So I don't think that was the problem, but I did end up losing my large female, and she was eating the food. But the belief is, based on my research, is that the protozoans had moved from the digestive tract into other structures, other organs, and into the spinal cord. She was displaying some really strange neurological problems. Couldn't find the food, was swimming into the glass, into corals. Eventually, she just swam up to the front of the tank and kind of stayed at the bottom in the corner. And so I ended up pulling her out, and we ended up losing her. Also, the large male anthias, Moses, he also died. He died a couple of days ago. And, I just think I did not medicate soon enough. So it's kind of a late response. So, hey, it is what it is. 50-50. I'm happy I was able to save a couple fish. But I think overall it was a success. It's just that when you see that stringy white poop, that's pretty much an indication that you have hexamida. Okay, and these are these internal protozoans that cause havoc on the GI tract. And then they cause, I think what it is it causes the lining of their stomach to become inflamed. And then they'll start producing like a internal mucus, and that's what you see, that white poop coming out. And this inflammation prevents the fish from absorbing nutrients properly. Even though it's still eating, it's not getting the nutrients it needs. And since anthias have a high metabolism, this obviously has an adverse effect on them quickly compared to other species of fish. So if you don't address it right away, which I didn't, I was already behind the 8 ball. Okay, so when you see white poop, man, get right on that. Get the Metroplex and get it into the food. Use the focus to bind the Metroplex to the food that you're feeding, and get those fish eating that medication as quickly as possible. But it really has made me think about how for example, I'm not going to be buying any more fish. And I want to point out some of the mistakes that I made. And as somebody that has a lot of years in this hobby, I'm still making stupid decisions, right? I mean, why am I adding any fish to my tank when I'm medicating these fish, right? I added some bang-eyed cardinals. 2 of them were killed by the hawkfish. 1 has survived. And then I didn't tell you guys, but I added 2 more. So I have 3 in here. And then I also added that mandarin goby, which died. I did tell you guys that I was concerned about the size. When I acclimated and put him in the tank, he looked okay. Kind of just a little bit sluggish maybe, but perfect. His fins were fine. He didn't have any discoloration. I didn't see anything that was problematic, but he died in 4 days. And so, my point is he didn't die because I'm treating the tank, and surely he didn't have the hexamida in his system, but he had something, right? And just the idea that I would put any fish in while I'm treating other fish is just stupid. So I'm gonna just take the responsibility on that one and admit that I'm an idiot for doing that. Definitely don't add any fish to your tank when you're treating other fish. It makes no sense. So this is kind of a problem that we have sometimes. I mean, some of us get excited or we just don't think it through. And you go to the store and you're like, oh man, that fish is awesome. I would just love to have that right now. And then you buy that fish and you take it home. You either put it in the tank when it's not the appropriate time. In this case, I was treating other fish, so that was just, obviously a stupid decision. But I don't even have a quarantine system set up yet. So after losing some of these fish here recently, I've just decided there'll be no more new fish additions regardless of the circumstances. I don't even care if someone wants to give me a yellow tang. I'm not going to take it. Until I can set up a quarantine system, I am no longer going to be doing the, just the plop and drop. It's not doing that anymore. It's not worth the headache. It's not fair to the fish. And it really just, it's a bad methodology, right? If you want to have success with fish populations, healthy fish populations in your tank, we need to start being a little more strict about how we purchase fish, how we quarantine them, and the proper timing of putting them in our aquariums, and not getting too excited and rushing into it. We've all done it. Some of us are more patient than others, but for the most of us, I'm pretty sure we're all we're addicts, right? I mean, we just can't help ourselves. And so it's better to just wait it out, take your time. This is a long game hobby. Nothing happens quickly. And if it does, it usually is not a good thing, right? We've all heard that term. So my thoughts are now is, when I move in September, I'm going to go ahead and I am actually going to set up some quarantine systems. There'll be a few different systems for different types of treatments, right? There will be copper will be used for if we have any amyloidinium or more serious diseases that need to be treated quickly. We'll use copper. In other systems, I'll be using other medications to address other potential diseases, right? Like what we're dealing with, urinema, hexamida. There are other medications to be using for those specific infections. So got to have multiple setups for quarantining fish, and I'm even considering on maybe setting up maybe one raceway just for coral as well. I mean, really, I have to do it. I have to quarantine everything. And I look back now, this tank is is 3 years old this last March. And yesterday I was just battling the usual suspects, right? We're going to talk a little bit about pests. We all have them. You know, there's the vermilion snails, Aptasia, bubble algae, filamentous algae. I mean, the list goes on. There's many of them, right? And once they get in your system, it's just damn near impossible to eradicate them. Aptasia, I have been battling. I've kept it under control. I've used Kalkwasser, which is, you know, works maybe half of the time. But if you don't get that Aptasia covered properly quickly, tissue will break off. It'll land on other rocks. It'll get in your plumbing. It'll get in your sump. It'll spread like wildfire. So the Kalkwasser method is a tough one. And it also depends on where that Aptasia is. If it's in a hole, it's really easy to go ahead and fill that hole up really quickly. But if it's in a weird place and a weird angle, and you're trying to get it with the Kalkwasser and you can't get it completely covered with it, more than likely that tissue is just going to break right off, and you're going to end up having many more Aptasia later on. They'll just pop up. So I've tried peppermint shrimp, and they are very effective at eating Aptasia. The problem is when they're done eating the Aptasia, they go for other corals. That's been my experience. I'm not saying that's the case for everybody, but as I discussed in my last video, I've had quite a few acans attacked by peppermint shrimp. And I feed heavy, right? So they're just, you know, they're at night they come out. That's when they're going to be most active. And if they just haven't had enough food, they're going to go for the next best meal. So it kind of, you know, it's a win or lose with peppermint shrimp. Maybe I just take the acans out, right? But what prevents them from going after another coral? I've certainly seen anecdotal evidence to support that they do. Torch corals and other species of coral. It's all, you know, on YouTube. You can find it. People talk about what they've seen. So, you know, then you have the Bergia nudibranchs, right? I haven't tried those personally, but I just don't see how they could be truly successful long term. I mean, if you have other fish in the tank that eat Bergia, that's a problem. So you're going to have to catch those fish out. You know, if you have a tank like mine where it's heavy flow, they could just end up blowing all around the tank and down into the filter. I haven't really seen anybody come out and say, oh, this is just the all-bee solution for eradicating Aptasia. So, and they're expensive. But hey, if they work, you give it a shot, and they can get into places where some other organisms can't get into, like a copper band butterfly. There might be some places but deep in the rock, or locations where there might be an Aptasia where that copper band butterfly can't get to, but those Bergia Aptasia can get to. I mean, so Bergia nudibranchs can get to predate on that Aptasia. I mean, so the point is to this is that when we're talking about these pests, once they're in there, they are really in there. And it becomes not about eradication, it becomes about management. I spent a lot of time yesterday removing some unwanted hair algae, killing some vermilion snails, picking off bubble algae. I killed 2 Aptasias, and I was just super annoyed. I just thought, oh my goodness, this is never gonna ever end. It's just part of the hobby, unless you have a very sophisticated protocol for quarantine. And that's where I'm gonna be leaning towards when I reset this tank up. And in fact, this rock will not be going back into my new tank. I'm gonna buy all new dry rock. I'm gonna cut off large frags, and I'm just gonna end up gluing them directly to that rock. I'm gonna have that rock's gonna be pre-cycled to be ready to go. So plenty of time to prepare for this. But I'm going to try my best to set up a system that is truly pest-free. And I'm willing to play the long game on this to acquire those type of results. We all know that it's hard to be patient in this hobby. I'm definitely one of the worst violators. You get excited, you go to certain websites, you see certain corals, you go into your local fish store, and you just, you're like, oh, I better get this now. I'm never going to get it again. And we rush, we pack our tanks full of corals and fish, and we don't think it through. So we introduce a lot of disease and unwanted pests into our tank, and then we spend a lot of time, managing those unwanted an undesirable organism. So, you know, if you have the ability and you're willing to put the time in and be patient, I just think it's really advisable that everybody start thinking about really doing their own quarantine system. I'm sure a lot of people are, and they're having great success with it. And I think that's where everybody should be. Without a quarantine tank, you're just taking a lot of unnecessary risks, all because you're just not being patient. Think about the money you lose on some of the fish and some of the corals because you kind of rushed into it. That money could have gone into a good quarantine setup, which should relatively not be that expensive, and would have covered those expenses. And then you would have had a system in place where you could put your corals and your fish before you put them into your main system, right? Let them go through your quarantine protocol first. I don't care how long it takes. I'll wait months for corals before I decide to put them in my main system. I've been very lucky with coral for the most part. I did have white bugs. Didn't mention that as part of my list, but yeah, I had white bugs. They call them white gray bugs, and definitely in the beginning were affecting my polyp expansion on many of the species of coral, SPS corals in the tank. So ended up treating with the product. Can't remember what it was called. Interceptor, I think. Yeah, Interceptor. Anyway, treated, had great success with that, but as a result of treating, I killed off pretty much all of my copepods and other microfauna, I'm sure. I had a lot of bristleworms die as well, and not shortly after that treatment, I had a massive dinoflagellate bloom, right? Because I created a massive imbalance. So again, more consequences, right? Rushing into purchasing corals, not thinking it through, and some of the stuff you just can't dip and put them in your tank. You know, they really need to go into a separate system for a period of time where you can treat them and observe them carefully to make absolutely sure you don't introduce anything into your main system that you don't want in there. So kind of want to just talk about that today, how important that is. I think that's the direction we're moving in. And we see a lot of businesses now that have established themselves as these quarantine businesses, especially for fish, right? But again, super expensive, right? By the time these fish are quarantined, they're a fortune. So kind of like you got to think about, you know, weigh the cost. Would it be cheaper for me to set up my own quarantine system? You know, perhaps I go to my local fish store that's not quarantining, and then all fish stores should be doing quarantine, period. But a lot of them don't. And so you go down to your local fish store, you know the fish aren't quarantined, so you buy the fish, but you bring it home and you have a quarantine system. And then you put that fish through your protocol before you put it in your main tank. I just think this is some excellent advice. As somebody that's been in this hobby for many, many years, like I said before, I've made all these mistakes over and over again. And I've just come to the point where I'm just like, I'm done making mistakes. There's no more rushing anymore. I'm going to make sure I set things up properly in September. And as I mentioned before, you know, I will probably start selling quarantine fish, and my goal is to sell those fish for a reasonable price. I've mentioned it a few times already, but the cost of a fish is astronomical, and then you add a quarantine element to it, and it just in some cases unaffordable. I mean, I don't know anybody that's really saying, "Oh, I got $3,000 for a black tang. I got $2,500 for a chevron tang. I got $500 or $600 for a yellow tang." I mean, these are really, really high cost fish, and it's sad that a lot of people can't get their hands on them. They're just we've been basically priced out of these fish due to their high cost. So I'm pretty sure with the right connections, I could bring those costs way down. So it's something I'm going to focus on in the future. Also want to remind everybody that in September, I'm going to be doing a lot of fragging. So if you are a subscriber, you are interested in getting some free frags, but keep in mind, I'm not a business. I'm not selling these to you. You got to pay for your own shipping. You got to pay for all your boxes and your materials. I used to do this a long time ago, so I know how to pack them. I could do a good job on that side of it, make sure that they come in good order. But, you know, might be just a good opportunity to get some really healthy SPS coral. So let me know if you guys are interested, especially when we get around to, I'd say August. I'll probably bring this up again. And that'd be a good time to reach out to me, and then I could start, contacting you guys and getting your information, and then talking about what you want, and then we'll get your order put together and get it sent out to you. Your free order. Anyway, nothing's free, right? You still got to pay for the shipping and the boxes. So my goal is to hope that I can send these to you, and they're delivered in excellent condition, right? I want to make sure you guys are happy with what you get. So anyway, I'm gonna leave it right there, but this is probably gonna be my last video for a little while since I got this surgery coming up. But when I come back, we'll get busy with some more content. And again, I always appreciate you guys watching my videos, taking the time to learn about my tank and my thoughts about the hobby. And we'll just kind of do some quick shots of the tank. So these are some of the core, that's the red planet. So, it's not the hugest colony, right? But there's a good amount of pieces on there. So if I cut off a piece, I'll probably cut off, like for example, that whole section for somebody right there. That's a good sized piece. We got this one here, the efflorescence, ultimate F-flow. There's be some good pieces on that one. This is the PC rainbow. Got tons of that. And then of course this coral here, I still don't know the name of it. I think it's like a Valida maybe, I'm not sure. But this is a gorgeous coral. It's super purple. Come to the front, maybe get a better shot of it. But there'll be some massive pieces of that for you guys. And yeah, there's just quite a few pieces here I think that people will be really interested in. And some of them obviously are too small to frag, but the bigger colonies like that Certosa, I'm definitely gonna frag that up right there. Get a better shot of that. There'll be plenty of pieces of that. And I think that's a vivid rainbow delight. I have a few pieces of that too. That's the Del Fuego. I can't remember the first part of that. But that's a great piece too. That's a Millie. It's got blue tips and it's solid red. And what else we got going on in here that'll be fraggable? That bird's nest right there. A few pieces off of that one. The Garf Bonsai, and these pieces will be a lot bigger by that time too. So one thing I could say is I grew coral pretty damn fast. I got the touch for that. But yeah, I'll have a bunch of pieces for you guys. Up there we got the Fox Flame, the pink lemonades. There'll be some of that to go out. The Acapora young guy over there, and maybe a couple pieces of that purple monster. That's a really nice coral. So I might do a couple of those. So yeah, we'll see where we are when the time comes, but a few of you guys that really want some pieces, reach out to me and then we'll get you set up, all right? All right guys, thanks again for watching my video. Hope everybody's having a great day. I'll see you next time.